welcome to part 2 of my little audiobook production trilogy. And I can't promise it'll be as good as Empire Strikes Back, but hopefully you will learn something. So I'm just going to show you, we recorded a load of stuff last week, so we've kind of done a dummy chapter here. So let me just show you, remind you what we've done. So we've recorded our start and end credits for our audiobook, and then we've recorded chapter 1, which is only a couple of minutes, but I'm going to show you how to edit that this week, so that we can get that all spruced up. And in the next tutorial I'll show you how to do the final bit of mastering for it. And the reason I'm doing it in 3 bits is because, you know, they're just shorter and easier to digest, I think, rather than doing one like 45-minute tutorial, or where, you know, people's attention spans just go AWOL. So to begin with, we'll just go through what does what, so that we can kind of get a little mini refresh on the edit tools. So let me just move this strip silence out of the way. You see where this blue highlighted bit is up on the screen here? That's called our smart tool. You can turn that on or off just by clicking the little blue line around it. What that basically means is wherever you hover in the timeline, the little edit tool is going to change. So we're just going to run through what the edit tools do in the smart tool. So if you hover in the top half of the track, you see it's a line here. That means you can just kind of click and drag and it will select a region wherever you've clicked and dragged. So let's maybe just select that bit there. And then if you move into the bottom half of the clip, it turns into the hand tool, which is the other, the tool at the end of the little trilogy of tools there. And then that means you can grab something and move it wherever you want to move it to. There are another couple of options, but I'm not going to go into those on this tutorial because they're in my Pro Tools Edit Window tutorial, but I'll put a link in the description to that, and you can find out more about those if you want. The other tools in the smart tool are, if you hover at the end of a clip, you can see it's turned into a little C there, and this is our trim tool, so you can just grab the clip and just pull it in, trim it, and that kind of neatens up the clip like so. So the last tool in the smart tool outfit is the crossfade, and if you just go up to the top corner of a clip, any corner, left or right, you can see if you just click, hold and drag, you can just drag in, make a crossfade however long you want to make it. But let's just undo that for now. So yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to edit this stuff so it's kind of ready to be mastered as an audiobook chapter, which you can put on the likes of ACX and things like that. So first of all, let's have a look at our credits. So we recorded our opening and closing credits. So I believe this is where our closing credits start. You've been listening to, there we go. So you've been listening to, let's just move those out of the way for a second. And looks like there's not much to be done with our opening credit. Let's just give it a play. You're listening to The Lost Harmonics, written and read by Dan Kelly. There we go. I mean, there's nothing to do there. If you just zoom in here, there's the tiny little lip smack. But I mean, did you hear that? Probably not. But we can get rid of it anyway. So what I've done is I've selected that with our little selector tool, and I can just delete that just like that. And then, yeah, that is pretty much ready to go. So when you're exporting a chapter for an audiobook, they want 1 second of kind of room tone before the audio comes in. And then after the last bit of audio, they want another 2 seconds of room tone as well. That's just the way they play the game, mate. So what I do is I've got a clip of room tone in my clip list here. I'm just going to drag it here. And if we click on the first waveform, let's zoom in here. And we'll click on the first waveform, and then up in our time code window, we can see it's 9:59:30:17. So we want our room tone to start on 9:59:29:17, 1 second before. So let's just grab that and move that up to 17. We can see in our time code window where it starts, ends, etc. So that's got 1 second of room tone before the first bit of audio. Let's just play our opening titles, just make sure we're okay with the rhythm, that nothing's too close together, which is an important thing to think about when you're editing stuff for any voiceover stuff, really. So let's just play that. You're listening to The Lost Harmonics, written and read by Dan Kelly. So that sounds good to me. And like I said, we need 2 seconds of silence at the end of that. So I'm just going to click on the last bit of audio there, just trim it in a little bit. And then we'll go up and look at our end point there, which is 09:59:35:19. So when we click on our room tone track, we want it to be end at 09:59:37:19. So let's just click anywhere there, and we're at 09:59:37:18. And I'm just going to nudge that cursor that way. So we're on 09:59:37:19. So what we're going to do is we're going to separate that with the key B. I'm just going to move that room tone up there. And then if we just kind of select that, it should be around 2 seconds, which it is. So we can, once we've mastered that, we can export that as the opening credits. And let's just move on to the closing credits now. And again, there's not much to do here. So what we're going to do, you can see a little breath there. You'll get to know what a breath looks like. It's kind of like that. It can be slightly bigger, slightly smaller. But these are the kind of things we want to get rid of from our audio. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move to the end of the clip, get my trim tool, and then just drag that in. And then that's going to be our first frame of audio there. And then that's going to start at 09:59:41:04. So let's get our room tone and start that at 59:40:04. So let's just nudge that there. There we go. So that's in the right place. Let's just play it, make sure we're okay with the rhythm of it. You've been listening to The Lost Harmonics, written and read by Dan Kelly. So it's slightly too late. I'm just going to close up the gap there. So I'm just going to click with my selector tool just before the last sentence there, the written by bit. And then I'm just going to separate that by pressing B. And then I'm going to move to the bottom half of the clip. So I'm on the grabber tool and just going to move that a tiny bit earlier. So let's just hear what it sounds like now. The Lost Harmonics, written and read by Dan Kelly. See, that feels better to me. It was just a little bit of a longer gap, and I didn't like it. So there. So let's just trim the end of this now. So let's just hover at the end of that clip, and we've got a trim tool there, remember, and we're just going to trim to the end of that. And the end time code, if we look at our time code box up there, is at 59:46:15. So we go to our room tone, and then we're going to want 59:47:15. So let's just click there. So we're at 21. So let's just nudge it back with a 5-frame nudge. There we go. Separate that, move the other bit of room tone out of the way. And then that's ready to go. So as soon as that's been mastered, we can export that. So that's our opening and closing credits. So we've got those out of the way. So now we're going to edit our chapter 1. So we're going to go through this quite systematically. And when you're working with chapters, what they tend to want ACX and things like that is the 1 second of room tone before the chapter number, and then a gap of about in between 1 and 2 seconds before the chapter actually starts. So let's get that sorted out first. So I'm going to get our first frame of audio sorted first. So you can see there's a little bit of crap at the beginning of there, which I'm going to trim off. And this is going to be our first frame of audio, 10:00:01:16. So we are going to want our room tone to start at 00:16. So let's just move that there. And that's going to be our first frame of audio there. And then chapter 1. After chapter 1, we need a gap of about 2 seconds. I mean, they say between 1 and 2 seconds, but I always do it at 2 seconds, and I've never had any problems. So let's just select everything between that and the first bit of audio of the chapter, and we're just going to delete that. And we're going to click on the end of our chapter 1 audio there, which ends at 02:10. So we're going to want our chapter to start at 04:10. So we're just going to grab that by clicking in that region. But we want to move everything up. So if you select Shift Option Enter, that selects to the end of the audio of your timeline. As you can see there, I'm just going to get rid of the rest of this room tone here because we're not going to need it. So I'm just selected that and deleted that. So yeah, let's just click on that, select to the end of our timeline, As you can see, it's just selected up to where that room tone ends there. And then we're just going to move to our hand grab tool by hovering in the bottom part of the track. And then we're going to move that to, what did I say it was? Let's just click on that again. 0210. So 0410 is where we want this to start. So let's just select to the end again. And you can see that. And then we're going to move that to 0410. And then we've got our little 2-second gap there. Chapter 1. The knackered doorbell wheezed out a barely coherent buzz, prompting Rick to... So as we're editing this, it'd be good to play it kind of, so we want to just make sure that the rhythm of the book isn't too kind of tight and bunched up, because sometimes when you're reading an audiobook, sometimes you things are too close together, or you might have paused because you're thinking about something if you're doing a sight reading or whatever. So it's good to make sure everything's got the right kind of rhythm. You'll kind of get a sense of when something's kind of too close to another sentence or too far away. But let's just see how we feel. So I'm just going to play the first couple of sentences here. The knackered doorbell wheezed out a barely coherent buzz, prompting Rick to look out the living room window. There was a clapped-out orange Mark I Escort parked at an odd angle across the drive. So that rhythm seems kind of quite nice to me. It's not too bunched up. It's not too far apart. The only thing that I've noticed here is a little breath. So I tend to get rid of the breaths in between sentences, but not actually during sentences, because otherwise it starts to sound a bit robotic. But let's get rid of that breath anyway, just to be neat. So I'm just going to hover in the top part of the track, select up to there, and just delete that. I'm happy with the rhythm of it, so let's just press on. At an odd angle across the drive. Fuck's sake, please be fucking normal. He cantered down the stairs 2 at a time. Yeah, again, I'm happy with the rhythm of that. If we wanted to gap it, we could just select between those two, delete that, click on that clip, select to the end, and then we could just move that up a tiny bit, maybe give it a little bit more breathing space, as it's a bit of dialogue. So sometimes it is nice to have a little bit of breathing space between a kind of sentence of description or whatever, and then when it goes into dialogue. But yeah, let's just play it again, see how that sounds. Angle across the drive. Fuck's sake, please be fucking normal. He cantered down the stairs. Okay, and maybe I might increase that gap as well. And there's a little breath there. We can see it there. So I'm just going to click on that, drag that, and then select that. Now, there is a way to have a little bit of a head start on getting rid of breaths and things like that. If we go to edit here, we go to strip silence. This is the thing that I closed down earlier, which is why I forgot about it until now. Let me just select everything. So I'm just going to select that clip, select all. And you can see, if I zoom in, that there are lots of these weird little boxes that have been drawn around the audio. Now, everything around the audio is what strip silence is going to keep, and everything in between is what it's going to strip out, basically. So if we just go along here, and I could zoom in, you see that little dot there? I mean, it'll get rid of things like that. See that massive breath here on the right? It's going to get rid of that. And you can adjust the threshold. So if we just take the threshold up, you can see the boxes kind of get narrower and narrower as the threshold increases, because it's going to cut more stuff out. Now, if I take it up to -17 there, you can see on the left here, it's drawn a box around the first bit of that audio and the second bit, and it's going to cut this little bit out. So that's the threshold's basically too high. So we need to decrease that. And then if we just sort of scroll along here, this bit here, you can see it's going to cut off the first kind of little bit there, and we don't want that. So, I mean, normally there's no written rule as well. It's every bit of audio is different, so you kind of have to sort of adjust and see, uh depending on what you're working on, basically. So I normally have it around -24, -25 is. So you can also adjust where that box starts as well. So if we go to clip start pad here, you see when I adjust that, it moves it closer or kind of just out a little bit. So I think around here, so that little bit here, now it's not going to cut that off as badly. And it's all non-destructive anyway, so it's not kind of gone forever. And let's just adjust the clip end pad here. So you can see it's just now adjusting the end of the boxes there. So I think that's kind of quite good. And you can see it's going to cut out stuff like this big breath here, that little kind of dot there. There's a breath there. It might just clip that. I mean, it's not going to be perfect, but it is kind of a good little starting point. So let's just zoom out. And I'm just going to hit the button on there. So you just hit strip. And also, sorry, there's a minimum strip duration as well. So you can see around here, it's cutting between those two bits of that sentence, that little bit of dead air there. But if we increase the strip duration, it's just going to cut it's just going to cut out that sentence and not the little bit in between. So let's leave it on whatever it was. What was it on? 127, something like that. Yeah, so I'm sort of happy with that as a starting point. So let's strip that out, and you can see that it's stripped out all that kind of rubbish in between. And also, once you've done it, keep everything selected, and if you press Command F, you'll get your batch fade menu come up where it will basically do a fade in and out and a crossfade between clips. So it just does a batch of fades. So you don't have to go and just do a fade on every single little clip. And you can adjust the size. So at the moment, I've got my fade in, my crossfade, and my fade out set at 20 milliseconds, which is a tiny amount of time. But it just takes the edge off, so there's no clicking or any sort of nonsense like that going on. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to OK that. And now you can see if I zoom in, it's put a little fade on the beginning of that clip and the end of that clip there. Everything from there has been kind of sort of tidied up. We will have to kind of go through it and just make sure that there are no kind of half breaths that the strip silence has left. But anyway, it's kind of just gives you a head start, and I always use it in my workflow. So you should too. Anyway, let's press on, shall we? He cantered down the stairs 2 at a time and swung the communal door open. Give us all your money, bellowed. Right, there's a little click there. Now, we don't need that, so I'm just going to trim that in. And this is a bit of dialogue, so I might give it a little bit of space after that sentence as well. The communal door open. Give us all your money, bellowed the dapper stranger in front of him. So also, the kind of description of what he said or whatever, that's a little bit too late for my liking as well. So I'm just going to highlight that, and I'm just going to move that a little bit closer to the dialogue. And I might just get that bit of dialogue there and the kind of voice description and just move that a tiny, tiny bit further away from that sentence just to give it a bit of breathing room. The communal door open. Give us all your money, bellowed the dapper stranger in front of him. See, it's just a bit tighter, a bit kind of nicer. Whereas if I just put it where it was, give us all your money, bellowed the dapper stranger. It's just that little bit too long after the bit of dialogue. So I just kind of like to keep those bits tight. Anyway, let's press on. Bellowed the dapper stranger in front of him. Rick leapt back and banged his head on the shelf behind him as the man stepped back. So that spacing, I think, is quite good. After the description of the voice, we've got about a second or so there. So I think that kind of works nicely. And stepped back, his mischievous grin replaced by a horrified look. Okay. Again, I think that's all right. Horrified look. Christ, sorry. Dialogue, I think, is a bit too close to the end of that sentence. So let's just select everything from there, zoom in, and just move that up a little bit. And just play the end of that sentence again. His mischievous grin replaced by a horrified look. Christ, sorry. I didn't mean to scare the shit out of you, the man said, stepping forward cautiously. Again, spacing's okay, but let's just shift-click, get that little bit of description, and then just move that slightly closer to the dialogue. I didn't mean to scare the shit out of you, the man said, stepping forward cautiously. Harry. He extended a hand. Right, that little bit of dialogue, I think could come a little bit sooner after that last bit. Stepping forward cautiously. Harry. He extended a hand. And again, the spacing there is a little bit too wide. So let's just select everything to the end again and move everything back. Cautiously. Harry. He extended a hand. The guy was smart, wearing a long blue overcoat. Okay, I think the gap could do with a bit of widening there. So let's just select to the end and move everything up a tiny bit and just play it. He extended a hand. The guy was smart, wearing a long blue overcoat. See, just where it says wearing a long blue overcoat, there's a little kind of half breath where the strip silence hasn't done its job properly. No disrespect, strip silence, by the way. You've done very well. But anyway, let's just trim that little half breath and play that back. The guy was smart, wearing a long blue overcoat, designer sunglasses, ridiculously white teeth, and a pair of loafers that had no business being that pristine. Okay, that's all good. Again, and a pair of loafers. There's a tiny little bit of a breath there, so let's just trim that in. Ridiculously white teeth, and a pair of loafers that had no business being that pristine. He peered at Rick over his sunglasses, then removed them as Rick's brain caught up. Okay, I think that gap's all right. The rhythm seems good on there. I'm just going to trim that in just to be neat, but I think that sounded okay, actually. So, yeah, let's press on. As Rick's brain caught up. No way. Right, bit of dialogue here. I'm just going to space that a little bit. And then we can see there's a massive space after that dialogue. So, hang on. I think that's Rick carrying on saying whatever he's saying. So let's just select that to the end and move all that back. Because this is the same bit of dialogue, but there's obviously a bit of space where I've thought about it or whatever, while I'm trying to find the voice or something like that. I don't know. Many reasons it could be. But anyway, let's just play it. As Rick's brain caught up. No way. Hang on. You're Bradley Goodfellow, said Rick. Okay, that's all right. There's a little weird noise at the end of the start of this bit. Hang on. That hang on, you see, if we zoom in, you can see this little bit at the beginning. I might just trim that off. There we go. Hang on. It was just a little bit of a clicky bit of crap that I didn't like. So I'm going to get rid of that. You're Bradley Goodfellow, said Rick. Sometimes, replied Harry with a smile. Shit. Okay, I think that spacing's okay. I might just move shit up a bit. Again, there's a little bit of crap on the beginning of that. I'm just going to trim that off. Let's just play that bit again. Shit. And we're just going to select to the end and move that up a tiny bit. Harry with a smile. Shit. Sorry, I just wasn't expecting you. Neither was my mother, replied Harry. Okay, I'm just going to tighten that up a tiny bit. It's just a little bit too late for my liking. Let's just select to the end and move that up. Expecting you. Neither was my mother, replied Harry. And again, I'm just going to move it a little bit earlier. There we go. This should do it. Wasn't expecting you. Neither was my mother, replied Harry. And then the replied Harry, I'm just going to tighten that up a little bit. Neither was my mother, replied Harry. Rick snorted a chuckle, which made him... Right, okay, we see the strip silence has just kind of trimmed that a little bit too much there at the end of that chuckle, so I'm just going to pull that out a bit. And I think there was something I didn't like at the beginning of there. And let's have a listen. Replied Harry. Rick snorted a chuckle, which made him dribble involuntarily, which quite rightly caused a second or two of dead air before Harry took the reins of the conversation. Shall we? He said, gesturing to move inside. Cool. I think that all sounds pretty good, to be honest. So I'm just going to listen to that gesture for him to go inside bit again. He said, gesturing to move inside. Shall we what? Okay, that's good. And I think because he's just said, shall we? Shall we? Move inside. Shall we what? that shall we what is in kind of the right place. It needs to come in quite quickly because he's asked a question and then he's answered it. So you kind of sort of want it to be a bit snappy. So let's just play it from there. Inside. Shall we what? Look at the flat. Oh, fuck. Yeah. Sorry. It's this way. Clearly. Rick stammered. Cool. I think that's all right. It's just a couple of little bits like at the beginning of here. You can see there's a little bit of crap there. Let's just trim that. And then I think at the beginning of this bit there was as well. So let's just trim that. Fuck. Yeah. Sorry. That's all right. Fuck. Yeah. Sorry. It's this way. Clearly. Rick stammered. All the anxiety. Okay, I'm just going to move that Rick stammered. Just tighten that up a little bit. Clearly, Rick stammered. All the anxiety. And I'm just going to trim that. There's a little bump at the beginning of there. And then I'm just going to select to the end and move everything back a bit. Close that gap up. Rick stammered. All the anxiety about living with a complete stranger dissipated as Rick led the way up the stairs, smiling to himself. Bradley Goodfellow, the famous comic. I think that Bradley Goodfellow comes in a little bit too soon. So let's just select to the end, move that maybe 3/4 of a second or so. Let's just play it now. Up the stairs, smiling to himself. Bradley Goodfellow, the famous comic. Not famous, of course, or Netflix famous. Yeah, maybe that's a bit too much. I'm just going to select to the end, split the difference, move it back a bit. Here we go. Smiling to himself. Bradley Goodfellow, the famous comic. Not famous, of course. Okay, there's a little bit of a bump there. We can see where it says not famous, so we're going to trim that. Not famous, of course, or Netflix famous, circuit famous, which was way cooler to Rick. Okay, and then at the end of circuit famous, there's a little kind of breath. Circuit famous. That we need to trim. So let's just trim that in. Circuit famous, which was way cooler to Rick. I'm Rick, by the way, he said as he climbed the stairs. And again, I'm just going to select to the end and move where he says I'm Rick just a tiny, tiny bit later. It's a Rick. I'm Rick, by the way, he said as he climbed the stairs, turning back to. And again, there's a little half breath where it says turning. So we're going to trim that. And the stairs, turning back to make sure Harry was following. That's a relief. Or you'd have been wondering what the fuck I was doing here. Cool. Okay, let's just select that last bit of dialogue. Move that a tiny bit later to let that breathe. He was following. That's a relief. Or you'd have been wondering what the fuck I was doing here. Just play it again. Harry was following. That's a relief. Or you'd have been wondering what the fuck I was doing here. Cool. And that's the end of our chapter. I'm just going to trim that just to make that neat. And then we'll highlight the last bit of audio, get the time code, which is the end point of that clip, which is 021312. So remember, we need 2 seconds of silence after the end of this chapter. So we were looking for 021512 for our room tone to end. So let's just click on the room tone track and find 1512. We'll nudge 5 frames there. There we go. And then we'll separate that. Click that room tone, delete the rest of that because we don't need it. And then that's going to be ready to export as soon as we've done our mastering. So there we go. That's kind of how to edit a mini kind of chapter, I guess, and your opening and closing credits. And each chapter is going to be the same kind of thing. I haven't shown any noise reduction stuff because I'm going to do a proper tutorial on all the little noise reduction like D-clicks, D-rustle and things like that. I'll do a proper thing with all of those after I've done this little trilogy, I think. So I hope that's useful for you. In the next tutorial, I'm going to show you how to master this bit of audio so that we can do that together and then export it. And then that's kind of how to record, edit and master an audiobook. So if you've enjoyed that, please like and subscribe to my channel and ring the little bell icon so you can get notified when there are new videos being uploaded. And if you want to subscribe to my Patreon, you can. The thing's coming up now, www.patreon.com/thewavelad. And you've got all sorts of tutorials which I've uploaded, like projects, templates, handy PDFs, and I'm always uploading stuff to there anyway. So there we go. That's it for this tutorial, and I will see you in the next one where we'll master this bit of audio. Okay, goodbye.